This story, which took place in 2012, shocked all of Australia. A young woman disappeared from the well-lit streets of Melbourne while returning home late at night. Just a few days later, tens of thousands of people took to the streets after learning the shocking truth. In this video, we will tell you what happened to Jill Meagher and how it affected all of Australian society. Jill Meagher was born on October 30th, 1982, in the small Irish port town of Drogheda. She spent her entire childhood with her parents in the village of Termonfeckin, located near the town. When she was 9 years old, her father, George McKeon, got a job in the Australian city of Perth. The girl finished school there, and in 1996, she and her family returned to Ireland. Upon returning to her homeland, Jill enrolled at St. Oliver's Community College and later earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from University College Dublin. After successfully graduating, Meagher took a job at a major broadcasting company. Around the same time, she met Tom Meagher, whom she married in 2008. A year later, she and her husband decided to move to the Australian city of Melbourne. There, the woman got a job at a radio station as an administrator. She also occasionally appeared on air. During this time, the woman's parents moved back to Perth. Jill had an excellent relationship with her family, and in September 2012, she visited them to check on her sick father. Jill planned to continue her beloved job, and in a couple of years, she and her husband dreamed of having a child. On the evening of September 21st, 2012, Jill and her colleagues went to a local bar, the Brunswick Green, located on Sydney Road. Afterward, the group went outside for a walk, and 15 minutes later, they decided to go to another bar on the same street. Jill left the bar around 1:30 a.m. and headed home, where her husband Tom was waiting for her. On the way, she called her brother Michael to discuss their father's health as he was ill. Jill expressed her concerns, and her brother suggested the whole family get together for the upcoming holidays. At 2 a.m., Tom woke up and realized Jill was still not home. He grew worried and started calling her mobile, but his wife didn't pick up. By 4 a.m., her husband decided to contact the police. The police drove around the entire area and questioned random passersby, but to no avail. No one had seen Jill. Her colleagues, with whom she had been out that evening, told the police they last saw her leaving the bar on Sydney Road. They said their goodbyes there, assuming she would be home within 30 minutes. The police combed the city all morning, but they couldn't find any leads. In the morning, Jill's colleagues took the search to social media. They posted about the woman's disappearance on Twitter and created a Facebook group called Help Us Find Jill Meagher. Television and radio immediately picked up the sad news. Flyers with information about the missing woman were also posted all over Melbourne. All of this drew widespread public attention, and from the very first day, thousands of people followed Jill's fate. Jill's husband made an emotional plea to journalists, which drew even more attention to the case.
What are you going through?
Hell. It's just devastating, but yeah, just trying to push on as much as possible.
What's keeping you going?
Just hope somebody saw something, or she just walked through the door.
Do you still think that'll, could happen today?
I have to. Yeah.
That same day, police began examining footage from street surveillance cameras. They watched hundreds of minutes of footage from various points in the city, bars and shops, intersections and gas stations. At first, they had only one recording featuring Jill. A camera near the bar captured her saying goodbye to her friends and heading home. Meanwhile, on September 24, the street searches yielded results. Her handbag was found in an alleyway not far from Jill's home. This discovery helped the police focus their attention on a specific area, which also produced results. On September 25th, the police managed to spot Jill on another recording. She was caught on a camera near a bridal shop at 1:42 a.m., about 12 minutes after leaving the bar. The footage showed her talking to a suspicious man in a blue hoodie in the middle of the street. The same man had been filmed in the area of the shop 4 minutes earlier. One recording showed him running in the same direction Jill had walked.
And that CCTV footage, which we've all seen, Lisa, has led police to concentrate much greater on their suspicion that she may have been abducted.
That's right. They're particularly interested in talking to the man in a blue hoodie, jeans and sneakers who was seen doubling back across that CCTV footage. He's described as being in around his 30s, but there's quite good vision there, and police are hoping that anyone who knows him or the man himself will come forward. They say because of this CCTV footage, they're moving more and more towards the likelihood that she was abducted. Now that only increases.
The police also tracked her phone's geolocation data and determined that on that night, it had traveled along one of Melbourne's main highways. This could only mean one thing: the phone was in a car. Law enforcement began examining camera footage from that highway. Thanks to the phone's geolocation data, they didn't have to sift through the thousands of cars that drove there that night. With the time and the smartphone's movement pattern, they very quickly established that its movements matched the route of one of the cars. Upon checking the car's license plate, the police were horrified. It was registered to a criminal with a history of violent offenses against women. On September 27th, the police announced the man's arrest. He turned out to be 41-year-old Adrian Ernest Bailey. Along with the arrest, they issued a grim accusation against him. According to the investigation, he had sexually assaulted and murdered Jill Meagher. This statement shocked the public and journalists, who had hoped for the best until the very end. Although the police kept the details secret, no one held out hope of finding Jill alive. At a closed briefing for reporters, the police only said they were confident the case was solved. Only sometime later would all the details be disclosed to the public. As soon as the suspect's name was announced to journalists, his disturbing biography came under intense scrutiny. Adrian Ernest Bailey worked as a pastry chef and had 4 children with 2 different women. He first married at 18 when his girlfriend became pregnant. The couple later had a second child, but they divorced after 6 years. At just 19, he was jailed for the first time for assaulting a young woman and attempting to attack 2 others. For this, he received a 5-year prison sentence, of which he served only 22 months before being released on parole. In 1995, he married again. In this marriage, he had 2 more children, a son and a daughter. In 2000, he was again accused of assault, but the court failed to prove his guilt. However, just 2 years later, he was sent to prison for 11 years for assaulting 5 women. But let's return to 2012. The police interrogated him for hours until Bailey finally confessed. He had killed Jill Meagher in an alley on Hope Street. A few hours later, he led investigators to the place where he had hidden the woman's body. It was on the outskirts of Melbourne, near Black Hill Road. According to him, when he saw Jill near the bridal shop, he tried to kiss her, but the woman hit him in the face. He then dragged her into the alley, where he assaulted and killed her. He then panicked, got into his car, drove home, grabbed a shovel, and returned to the crime scene. He put the body in the car and headed to Black Hill Road, where he buried Jill. While he was in custody, investigators uncovered another disturbing fact. At the time of this crime, Bailey was still on parole, and his behavior should have been monitored by the relevant authorities. The public was outraged that the justice system had allowed such a monster to be released early. On September 30, a march was held along Sydney Road in memory of Jill Meagher. The organizers expected a few hundred people, but the actual number of participants was staggering. That day, 30,000 concerned Melbourne residents took to the street. Jill's parents, who also attended the event, thanked everyone for their support and expressed hope that their daughter's tragic fate would compel the authorities to pay more attention to women's safety on the streets. Jill Meagher's funeral was held privately on October 4. Given the immense attention to the story, thousands could have attended the ceremony, but the family wanted to say goodbye to her in peace. The trial of the criminal began on April 5, 2013. Initially, there were rumors that Bailey would plead not guilty and try to avoid a conviction. However, at the very first hearing, he made a full confession. The final court session was held on June 19. The judge sentenced Bailey to life in prison with the possibility of parole after no less than 35 years. By March 2015, as a result of 3 separate investigations, Bailey was found guilty of a series of other violent crimes against 3 women. He had committed all these acts long before the attack on Jill Meagher, but the victims only came to the police after her case received widespread publicity. In May 2015, the The court sentenced Bailey to another 18 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 43 years. Even though his lawyers managed to appeal one of the charges related to his earlier crimes, Bailey will only be eligible to apply for parole at the age of 80. After the trial, some details of his biography emerged. The criminal revealed that he had been abused by an adult woman as a child, and his father regularly physically punished him. His lawyer also stated that Bailey was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which manifested in sharp mood swings and an inability to control his anger. However, none of the above helped him reduce his prison sentence by a single day. In November 2020, the unexpected happened. Bailey's own mother gave an interview in which she stated that she had repeatedly warned the police about her son, but no one listened. She tried to convey that Bailey was extremely dangerous to society and should not be released from prison. Her words were simply ignored.
Well, you're a very powerful voice to put to it because you're coming from the other side of it. And I was about to say about your son that I thought it was important people know about his history and what he'd done because the system failed. He shouldn't have been on the streets.
And let me tell you, Neil, I went high and I told them that I had concerns. And nobody listened to me. Nobody. His parole officer didn't listen to me. I went into the city to an office in the justice system. Nobody listened to me.
This is is this before he killed Jill?
Yes, it is.
And you could
Yes, it is. Nobody listens. We need to listen to these voices. We need to listen to the victims' voices. Just because they're not with us anymore doesn't mean they're less important and their voices shouldn't be heard.
After this whole story, the authorities in the state of Victoria tightened the laws related to the parole system. Thanks to these amendments, a convicted criminal could be sent back to prison for the slightest violation. Furthermore, it became much more difficult to be released before the end of one's term. This crime showed all Australians how unjust the system can be. Even senior politicians admitted that they had failed Jill Meagher. But this problem affects the entire world. And in our modern society, we still cannot speak of complete justice and safety. Take care, and thank you for watching.